Welcome to the weekly Volunteer and Combination Officers section webinar series. This week, we're going to talk about something that's probably a little bit different about virtual reality training. Is it in your future? And we have Chief Brian Kazmerzak from the Benton Harbor Fire Department, and he has had a lifetime, I should say lifetime, a long spell of developing simulations for fireground and other different things. We, as I look at the future, we're going to see more simulations. And what I hope Brian can share with you today, and I know he will from the content we've seen, is that he will give you some ideas on how to develop some of those simulations. So let me get through the political stuff here, and you all know that we're doing this over voice over IP. If you have a problem, log out, log back in, see if that doesn't fix your problem. Then we do have the chat session that I will be monitoring, question and answers. And I'm not sure we have any handouts for you, but Brian will have told you a few places you can go to get some of this simulation material. So, what's the VCOS been doing for you? I'm not about to insult you all and say you guys can't read or you haven't heard this before, but there's some of the things that the VCOS is doing. A couple new projects that are out there is the Critical Thinking Academy. A couple years ago, the VCOS adopted the logo Leaders in Critical Thinking. I kept asking the board, well, what does that mean? Leaders in Critical Thinking. Well, how does that relate to the fire service? So we're actually going to develop a Critical Thinking Academy that will teach managers and incident commanders how to think beyond the obvious to try to solve problems. A couple in-person courses there on the that slide on the management labor initiative, and then beyond hoses and helmets. Those are available for you. If you email me, we will get you signed up for that. I'm going to skip over that one. The V2S has a partnership with Vector Solutions, and they have an exclusive offer for the VCOS members. I've used this before, so if you've seen this before, I would again tell you the one thing is you'll get a discount. You won't have to pay the initiation fee to sign up for the Vector Solutions product. They sponsor the Training Officer Award that is given out every year at Fire Rescue International. So we're happy for them to be in partnership with the VCOS. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Kazmerzak, and Brian, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, John. Definitely appreciate you having me. I think back on my career, and you're really right. I've been doing simulation now for probably 20 plus years at least, and it's kind of crazy to sit back and think about it. I learned about simulation kind of accidentally. I was sitting in a class at FDIC in the big room. It was when Skip Coleman was doing the big room sessions, probably about 2001 or so, and as a matter of fact, it was right. It was because it was prior to 9/11, and he had Fire Studio. I think it was Fire Studio 2 at the time, and we went down, and my old chief at the time, Tim Schabel, we went down to the booth and we bought it that day because we saw what it could do. So 2001 to 2024, so 23 years of doing simulation-based training. So we're going to talk today about the art of simulation because I really do think there is an art to it, and then also about virtual reality training because simulation and virtual reality, there is some differences. There's a lot of similarities as well. So we'll kind of touch on some of that stuff and we'll go through. So um, just a little bit about me and my career. Currently, 33 years of fire service experience. I started as a cadet when I was 14 years old. Was lucky enough to get hired when I was 18, right out of high school. Currently the Deputy Director of Public Safety for the Benton Harbor Department of Public Safety in Benton Harbor, Michigan, about 65 miles from Chicago, right on the lakefront. And really, I'm involved with a lot in the fire service, but the two things that I'm the most proud of, besides my own department, are the International Society of Fire Service Instructors. I've been involved with them since 2011 after I won the George D. Post Award. And I wasn't a member at that time, and it caused me to become a member. And I think the ISFSI and a lot of their training programs are amazing, and has definitely escalated my career. But also, since 2006, I have been the director of operations for firefighter close calls. the secret list for chief goldfetters. So, it's good stuff. It's they've definitely opened up a ton of doors for me being involved with these different organizations, and just like VCOS and the IEFC, they're fantastic organizations out there that are doing a lot for the fire service. So, I love this little quote, and I found this quote on Twitter a long time ago. Ponder this: if technology is the new literacy of the 21st century, what percentage of our educators are illiterate? And when you really sit back and you think about fire service education, if you're not using technology in some way, shape, or form, whatever that may be, you truly are, pretty much illiterate to current education. So, if you're still using the whiteboard for everything, if you're even if you're just using PowerPoint for everything, I would consider yourself to be a little bit technology illiterate, because we've passed ourselves up so much with PowerPoint. And one of the best up and coming fire instructors I know is a guy named Jesse Marcotte. He's the training chief in Northville Township, Michigan, and he doesn't use PowerPoint for anything. He uses Canva pretty much now for everything. And what you can do in Canva versus what you can do in PowerPoint is definitely a lot different, a lot better. So, that we have to embrace technology as fire service educators. So, who are you? Are you the one that you're embracing all the different technology? You have the latest iPhone, you have the Oculus from Facebook, virtual reality type simulators, or are you Gordon Graham? And I love Gordon. Gordon still sponsors us at Firefighter Close Calls and has since the beginning. But Gordon, I think, is the only instructor out there currently that can still use an overhead projector and be relevant with it. If you're not Gordon, other than that, you better be embracing technology. You better have the newest, latest, and greatest, and figure out how to use it in your training program. So there's a lot of different technology out there. When we sit back and we look, we have full-blown command training centers. I worked for a great boss and a great department for a long time, Clay Fire in South Bend, Indiana, and was able to open Indiana's first command training center when I worked there. You look at what Orland Park, Illinois is doing, the Orland Fire Protection District, with their strategic and tactical simulator and also EMS simulations. You look at what some departments are doing with driving simulators, and I know Chief Buckman's going to talk about that in a little bit, probably when we get to the driving simulator slide. What the Phoenix Fire Department and Don Abbott has done with command training that turned into Blue Card, and we'll touch a little bit on that. And then some of the, and when I say this term, I'm not trying to use it derogatorily, but some of these are more video game based trainings than anything as well. So, and we'll talk about some of my rules of simulation where I touch on that. So, John, did you have something? I saw you pop back up there on the screen. And you're muted.
Nope, I was just coming back and looking in the chat.
Okay, very good. So what is effective training in your organization? How do you define effective training? And when you look up here on the little death by PowerPoint slide, and if you ever want to Google something, go to YouTube and put in death by PowerPoint. There's a comedian that his whole shtick is talking about death by PowerPoint. Unfortunately, the fire service has done a ton of death by PowerPoint throughout our evolution. Right? When I took Fire Instructor 1 in 1997, it was done with acetate, overhead projector. Before that was slides and a slide projector. But then it transitioned to PowerPoint, and the instructors would show up. And I've had these instructors where they show up and they put the PowerPoint in, the Jones and Bartlett or the IFSTA disk in the computer or the thumb drive or whatever, 2 minutes before class, and they sit there and they read off a slide to you. Well, that's not effective training. So we have to be able to figure out how to connect with today's learner. If you read off a slide with today's learner, you're going to lose them very, very quickly. They're going to be playing on their phone. They're going to disengage. So we have to figure out ways to get firefighters and fire officers engaged in training. And technology is going to be that way as we move through, our training evolution. Now, the one thing I do want to touch on before we get too much into simulation based training is something called training scars. And do I believe there are places that simulation based training leaves training scars? Absolutely. So that's where you need to figure out the time and the place for this type of training. And I'll read this one down here on police training. And if you noticed in my introduction, I said Department of Public Safety. So my department is also, we're both police and fire, and our members are cross trained. So we deal with a bunch of different types of simulation, and I'll touch on those in a little bit. But right here, I'll read this one. The trainee played the arresting officer would simulate a gun by pointing his finger at the suspect, at the trainee playing the suspect, and give him verbal commands to turn around, place his hands on top of his head, and so on. This came to a screeching halt when officers began reporting to the training unit that they have pointed their fingers in real arrest situations. So, think about this, somebody going bang, bang, bang with their finger. Think about that type of training scar. What type of training scars do we see? Cages and mazes. Do they prepare us for search? Absolutely not. They're not meant to prepare us for search. Is it a simulation? Sure, it's a simulation. It's a hands-on simulation, but it's meant to develop mass confidence skills. It's not about search skills. What about a propane-based fire prop? Do I think there's a place for propane-based fire props? Absolutely, there is. They're one of the safest live fire trainings we can do. However, what happens with them is, the smoke either burns off or the smoke hangs low instead of high. So, is there places that training scars occur? Sure. Live fire training buildings are the same way. How many buildings have you ever been in that they tell you don't put out the fire? The best training facility I've ever been in is in Delta Township, Michigan, outside of Lansing. They have 8 burn rooms in their facility, and they put out and overhaul every fire, and then they rotate through all 8 burn rooms before they rotate back into the next one. So it doesn't matter if we're using computers or we're using training props. The training scars can occur. Now, what we need to be as instructors and training officers, training chiefs, is aware of the potential for training scars and be able to combat those training scars. So these are kind of my 3 rules, and actually I'll throw in a 4th of simulation-based training. And if you don't believe in simulation-based training, the best case study I think ever of simulation-based training is Sully Sullenberger and the miracle landing on the Hudson. So when you think back to that January day on the Hudson, no one had really ever successfully landed a commercial jet airliner on the water that wasn't meant to be on the water. Obviously, there was planes before that were pontoon based, but no commercial jetliner had ever landed on the water. However, and it wasn't even possible in the simulators at the time. But what was possible in the simulations, and Solly had flown over 300 bird strike simulations. So what did he do? He developed recognition prime decision making. If you've ever listened to Gordon Graham talk about recognition prime decision making, he talks about the slide tray in your head. And there's some great videos out there as well on YouTube on recognition prime decision making by Gary Klein as well. If you really want to dive into that, matter of fact, my training brief this month has one on RPDM. But so by flying that bird strike 300 times, he knew what that aircraft was going to do. He had that slide tray. He didn't have to go search for that experience. He already had that experience. So that's what we're trying to do with simulation-based training, whether it's driver's training, whether it's live fire training, whether it's command training, whether it's EMS simulations, whatever that may be. We're developing those slides. So my rules, and I got 3 of them up there. I'm going to throw in a 4th. Well, actually, I think I do have all 3. Never mind. I just saw the one. It's not a video game. We are not trying to beat a game. We're not trying to win a score, a high score. It's training. It's not hazing. It's training. And there's that little funny Paul Combs cartoon up there. But humiliation. Don't be ridiculous. This is serious hazing. I mean training. We do not humiliate anyone in the simulator if they fail. We let them talk about it. We have a discussion on it, and then we never let them leaving the simulator doing it wrong. Because if we let them leave doing it wrong, it helps develop those training scars, right? So those are the things we need to be cognizant of as we run through these simulations. Is we're not going to haze somebody. And I always use the example in command training. I was lucky enough to be involved in the development of Blue Card when I worked at Clay Fire, and Alan Brunacini, John, Nick, were all out there all the time with us. And you could make Alan Brunacini fail a command simulation if you wanted to. If you had the house on fire with the busload of hemophiliac children crashing into the glass truck with an airplane crash and everything else. It's not what this is about. We're there to develop the stuff that happens every day, working on, the type 4, the type 5 incidents, the places that firefighters get really killed and injured. Firefighters don't get killed and injured on busloads of hemophiliacs crashing into glass trucks. So, John?
Oh, Brian, you bring up some valid points, and we might even have some people on our webinar that's saying, "Oh, simulations is not really valuable." Well, let's go back. We brought up about Sully. Let's go back to the first time we went into space. How many times do you think they simulated that capsule going up and coming down? And then let's go even further and think about the times they simulated landing on the moon. So simulations are valuable, but I will put a caveat out there. Simulations without experience and research does not develop you fully. So you got to have all of the above, so to speak. Is research is reading, watching, listening, experiences. You actually have done some of it. So I encourage you all to do that. And my final thing about simulations, the Delta Force, which is the equivalent of the Navy SEALs in the Army. Their final exam is they'll put 10 people in a room. One of them will be live, and the other will be cardboard cutouts. And the Delta Force candidates will go in that room with live ammunition to shoot the cardboard cutouts. Now, people go, "Oh my God, how dangerous is that?" Yes, it is. But there's a difference between firing a gun with a bullet and one with a blank. So they do that. If you're going to prove, or go to Inside the Delta Force is a book that tells the story about training for inside the Delta Force team members. Back to you, Brian.
No, and a couple different things on that. I always use the Navy SEALs as well. So it's kind of funny you bringing up the military analogy, because look at when they did the SEAL Team 6 raid on bin Laden. They had multiple compounds, full scale compounds built of his compound that he was living in throughout the United States. And matter of fact, one of those was at Muscatatuck Urban Training Center. And John, you were down there with us when we deployed down there for the, I think that was shaking bedrock exercise. And that compound was still there and live. And, the SEALs trained there at Camp Howland. So, yeah, I mean, the military has used simulations forever. On the law enforcement side, we use simunitions or sim guns. They shoot little rounds that have basically a colored laundry detergent in them or a wax. Some of them are chalk. There's all that. So people have been doing simulation training in maybe not high fidelity technological simulations, but there's been simulation training basically ever since we've been around. And even pulling a hose line into a structure and charging it without smoke and fire is a simulation based training, right? So there's a lot of this. So now we're just adding the technology aspect to it. So, and I put this here because I'm a big fan of command decision making and command training. And like I said, I'm involved with Blue Card. I'm teaching a Blue Card sim lab the next 2 days. And we always say in there, we simulate to evaluate decision making. So, once again, Paul Combs does an amazing job of capturing what the fire service is all about. If the first time you ever run a fire as an incident commander, you have not simulated, you have not walked through an event, you're going to look just like this individual here. So remember, in a lot of cases, that simulation is used to develop and evaluate decision making. where did all this start? Don Abbott, Abbottville. Don was a chief in Indiana, down in Warren Township outside of Indianapolis. He developed his little traveling road show. It ended up being part of command school then in the early 2000s. And then after the Brett Tarver fire, he ended up building the command training center in Phoenix, and which eventually turned into the Blue Card program, and now the B Shifter Command Training Center out there is well dedicated to Chief Brunacini. But using just models and Matchbox cars and those type of things, Don was able to create very good simulations. If you've ever done wildland simulations with the sand table, that's kind of the same thing. I talked a little bit about digital combustion and Fire Studio. What you can do in digital combustion and Fire Studio, we don't have time to talk about here today. I've taught a week-long class on Fire Studio before. So, but just know that it's out there, and that if you go to their website, there's plenty of videos on how to do things. They show you how to build simulations. The biggest thing you want to remember with these is start small. I used to build simulations that were upwards of 200 slides that would take me 80 hours to build. You can't do that overnight. You're not going to be successful with that. So start with size up. Start with something very simple that you can sit around and have a discussion at the firehouse kitchen table or classroom or whatever on. The other one of these is Sims You Share. Sims You Share, a little bit different than Fire Studio, works a lot better to build simulations on an iPad or an Android tablet. You can do it on the other one too, but this one's just a little simpler. You can't be as in depth though with Sims You Share. So there's pros and cons to both. I use both. I run both of them on my computer and on my tablet. The nice part about Sims You Share is in the street, you literally can take a picture, put it in the program, add smoke and fire, and be having those discussions. So it's a fantastic piece of training equipment that's out there that allows for high fidelity command simulations. Blue Card, we touched upon Blue Card a little bit. Obviously, this whole program is based off simulation-based training. So if you're interested more in that, you can Google it and you'll come up with that.
Hey, Brian, you mentioned about size up drills, and I think that is we all know it's the first 15 minutes. It's that initial decisions made by the company officer or the incident commander that dictates the flow of the events. And so it's like, Sherman had my fire department several years ago had a search and rescue, house on fire, car in the driveway, nobody's outside. And when they went in the front door, they turned to the right, but they were going to search the bedroom. Well, the bedrooms were on the left. So when we found out that we weren't teaching people how to look at a building and determine where's the kitchen, where's the bedrooms, where's the bathroom, so on and so forth. And you can do that using these kind of simulation drills.
Without a doubt, and be very successful at it as well. So the simplest form of simulations you can do is, and this is a screenshot last night from YouTube that I grabbed. You just put fire simulations in the YouTube search bar, and there is hundreds and hundreds of pre-built simulations out there that people have uploaded. You see one, I think, has 20 videos. Another one has 67 videos. I mean, this is free training. I use YouTube for everything. I have my own training channel on YouTube, Benton Harbor Fire Training. We upload our monthly training videos and everything there. But I mean, just look at this, just being able, and I guarantee you can find a house that looks like a house in your town. I guarantee you can find a McDonald's, you can find a Lowe's, you can find different buildings that look like buildings in your town and play these and have the discussion. If you're low budget, YouTube is your best training friend, and on so many different levels. Once again, we could do an entire program just on using YouTube for training because there's so much out there. Now, do you need to vet it? Absolutely, but there's some great stuff out there. EMS simulations. I think EMS is much more high fidelity than even the fire simulations. If you see some of these $30, $40, $50,000 mannequins that are out there now that talk, breathe, beat, pretty much everything, bleed, You can do everything with them, from tourniquets to cardiac monitoring to OB to pretty much everything. And now you see like this one up here in Texas where there's ambulance cutaways inside buildings. Ivy Tech, I think, has something like this. Orland has something like this in Illinois. There's lots and lots and lots of these out there that are doing it. There's one in Iowa. I think Sims in Motion, I think is the name of it, that does high fidelity EMS simulations. They got like this RV ambulance looking thing that go around with these simulators and that. And I mean, just being able to do this. So, doctors start this way. We have a lab at our hospital that is just full of sim people. It's a floor of the hospital that has nothing but sim people in it. We've used it for some mass casualty training before. So, and we have a pretty small hospital. So for them to have that, pretty much anybody has this stuff anymore. So using it for EMS simulations is huge as well. And just touching on that, John, I know you wanted to touch on driving simulators, so I'll let you go ahead and come in and touch on driving simulators real quick.
Well, I think driving simulators have value. It's like any training platform that you use, it has value. But the key for me in driving simulators, it's about repetition. Brian mentioned earlier, simulations is not a game. We're not trying to beat the game. We're trying to train you to have new skills. I've been in a driving simulator 3 times, and I remember some of the things they taught me. For cars coming across, crossing an intersection in front of you, and you're about to hit it, they told me turn to the left instead of turning to the right in the direction that they're going. Well, guess what? One day I had a car come across the intersection, and from my left to my right, and instead of me going to the left, as they told me one time in the simulator, I followed that car to the right and hit it. And so any training, any simulations that you do, whether it's EMS, uh, incident command, size up drills, you can't just do it once and think you're going to improve your skills. I know the state of Indiana just got a driving simulator, and they have one out of 800 plus fire departments, and we have 3 driving simulators at the State Police Academy in Indianapolis. But as far as I know, that's the only driving simulators in the state. So it's like if you're going to go in a driving simulator, to me, you're just playing a game because it's not really going to. It will improve your skills for a minute or two, but 21 days later, you're going to forget the things they taught you in the driving simulator. I know Fred Windish in Houston, one of my good friends, has one. I'm not sure how often it is used at their fire department. So back to you.
No, so I'm going to touch on 2 things. Number one, the departments I know that have them, unfortunately, they sit stagnant a lot. I'm not saying it's not a good tool, but they do sit stagnant a lot for the price. The other thing that I experienced personally at FDIC is I got very, very ill, very motion sick from one of them. And I know they give you the bracelets and have you suck on a peppermint or whatever while you're doing it, but it was not a pleasant experience for me in it. So I've stayed out of them since. They very well could be fantastic in training, and anybody on the chat wants to chime in with them, I welcome you to. But for me, it just was not a pleasant experience. I really was hoping that we were going to have Darley, and I know that was the original plan of today's webinar, and unfortunately they weren't able to join us. But now there's these different simulators out there as well, and this is truly virtual reality. So the stuff before was kind of 2D. But now that you get into the virtual reality where you're wearing the goggles, kind of like the Facebook Oculus type thing, and now they have a digital hose line, and you're navigating through a structure online and or in the goggles, and that this really is the new version of simulation training. You see, they're doing it for fire extinguishers. The other thing we have is we have the Lion Bullets prop, and at ISFSI, we've used these considerably. The fire panels, we've taught them at FDIC with them. We have one at our own department that we use all the time, along with their digital hose line. It's great for some drills, and especially search drills and things like that. So is it the most realistic? Nope. But does it serve a purpose? And yes. So John, I know you've experienced the Darley one, so I'll let you touch on that because I've seen it, but I haven't had a full-blown experience.
Well, actually, I've only seen it as well, but I was going to talk about the Lion product because I have used that and did some training with them on that. And I would tell you, Carmel, Indiana was the first fire department I knew that bought one in Indiana. And Carmel was a fairly large career department. And I thought, why did they buy it? And what they said was, and the guys loved it, from teaching them the proper hose or stream application. It's not about crawling down that hallway. It's about putting the water in the right spot at the right time in the right volume. That's what these simulators do. We can play the game, or we can be negative about it and go, oh, it's nothing. What skills are you trying to teach? Crawling down a hallway at 800 degrees is not something you're going to train on. If it's 800 degrees in a hallway in training, you're making a mistake as the instructor. So, people go, oh, well, got to get really hot in training. Well, how hot is hot? If you're in a real structure fire, is 400 degrees in a hallway a lot? Well, I got to tell you, 400 degrees, 17 seconds, your gear is not going to hold up for very long. So you
So
got to keep that in mind. Go ahead, Brian.
no, that's really good, John. And I wanted to touch on a couple things because the Bullax lion prop is fantastic. So, but you're right. A lot of this is about skill development, right? And that's what we're trying to do. It's not about the actually of the fighting the fire. It's developing those skills. So that's what these things are used for, and I think that's an important element to it. I really think with the cancer prevention and a lot of the other stuff that we're looking at right now, you're going to see more virtual reality because live fire training is going to become harder and harder to do. Now, I mean, with everything, there's pluses and minuses, but the just in the other piece you said about the gallons per minute piece, I taught at the New Hampshire Fire Academy last week, and they have a very nice propane building, and we were talking about some training scars and the smoke piece. But the one thing the guy kept saying to me, he goes, I'll take all those because he goes, I can sit here and hold the button and increase the difficulty and make the fire grow or make the fire get better, and it doesn't go out instantly. And he says that's one of the best parts is he says we're telling them not to shut the nozzle down, but then the fire in these Class A buildings goes out within 5 seconds, and what do? They shut the nozzle down. So everything has a pro and a con to it, and we have to be open to that.
I think that's a very valid point, Brian. Every device, live fire versus simulation versus virtual reality, all have pluses and minuses to it. You have to weigh those pluses and minuses, and then as the instructor, you have to have the right attitude about those pluses and minuses. Yep, you can get up and go, oh, this lion thing, it's not real. Okay, but we're required to do this. The chief said do it. So, but I will say that, and we haven't mentioned this, I'm pretty sure that you can buy these simulators. I'm sorry, not buy. You can get a grant from AFG to get these kind of simulators. So it's not like you're going to have to come up with $40,000 or $50,000 out of your own pocket to buy some of these. You can apply for a grant and apply for a regional grant. You're much more likely to get a grant if you're doing it with multiple departments than you are if you're doing it with just one.
We got ours through the Leary Firefighters Foundation is how we got our simulator from Lion Bullax. So absolutely. And I know they are AFG fundable as well. So, been very successful through several grant programs getting these for different departments. So without a doubt. I'll open it up for questions now. I think it's really awesome to see Ghana and Taiwan, and we got pretty much all areas of the United States represented. So that the International Association of Fire Chiefs is truly international. But if anyone has questions, please toss them out in the chat. John will navigate that. But here's my contact information. I'm happy to share my program with you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And it's really been my pleasure doing these. I was telling John beforehand, we were talking, and I said I'd much rather do a webinar anymore than to go and travel somewhere. And John's stranded in a hotel right now because of the airlines. So these are fun to do. They're easy to do, and I really hope that and for me, an hour or less is very manageable in my day. So having this type of training available is fantastic. So keep up the good work with the VCOS webinars.
All right. Well, I'm watching for questions. I do see one of my good friends, Yusuf from Ghana, is here. And then our friend from Taiwan is here.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm pretty sure met Mike Novak from Branson. I think I've met him at Missouri Fire School before. So
uh, so well, I don't see anybody. Let's see. I don't see anybody
I
jumping.
would love to see how um, Taiwan, is using this, or some of these other countries. Taiwan being kind of the technology capital out there. If you guys are using it, feel free to put something in the chat, because I think the U.S. this stuff's just coming to us, but I think there's been other countries that have been using this for a long time. So, we kind of adapt slowly in the U.S. We don't like change.
And I don't want to insult our attendee from Taiwan, so I won't say his name. But if you'd like to speak, uh, again, put that in there, and I can get Candace to unlock your microphone, and you could talk for a minute or two.
No, I don't think so.
No,
Well, I was hoping for some questions, but anyways, it's always good being hanging out with you, John. We always have fun when we're together. So, is there any questions or anything I can answer for you, John?
no, I think this has been good. Like we don't have to be long. We just have to give you good information. Remember, this is being recorded, and so we do encourage you to use this, share it with other people in your department, share it with other people that other fire chiefs. Encourage others to attend the weekly webinar series, and hopefully the topics we're doing are diverse enough that we'll have people attend. If you need a certificate for your department, if you email N. Phillips at iafc.org. She can get you a certificate. So if you're in need of that, that can be done as well. So with that, I want to thank everybody for coming. We appreciate Brian's time in putting this together. I know, as he said, he's done simulations for more than 25 years, and I remember using digitalcombustion.com as my first software to develop structure fire simulations. And so, I have not been around this as much as Brian, and I've not developed any command training centers like Brian has. They had a very nice one, or have a very
Oh
nice one
yeah, they still have it.
that he developed, and it. I remember when I was the academy director, Chief Schabel, his fire chief, said it helps. It definitely helped our people make better decisions. So whatever kind of simulation you can use, if you use them repeatedly, I think Brian and I both would tell you, use them repeatedly. You're going to have a better chance of making improvements in whatever those decisions are that you're asking them to make. Brian, any final comments?
No, just remember the rules. It's not a video game. Nobody fails, and it's all about the recognition, prime decision making. So, and no hazing. It's training. So that's what it's all about. And I put my contact information in the chat as well. I get to go to a meeting with the city manager right now, so if I answer right away, you know why. Get to end my day with that. So. Oh, interesting. Cleveland has been trying to work with a vendor to incorporate stress monitoring into active simulation. That's, yeah, he says pretty cool, and absolutely that's pretty cool, because that's what we're trying to do, right, is create some of those stressors in training, so we don't feel those stressors for the first time in real life. And just to close, I had a recruit panic in live fire training on Saturday, and he said he had never been put with those stressors before, and that's what caused him and to kind of panic, even though we had done smoke training and everything else, and they had done vehicle fires, but this was their first live fire. And he definitely, it was a learning experience for him, and he went back in and he finished, and he was successful. But the stress piece is huge. So I appreciate that, Brendan from Cleveland.
Well, it's a valid point. I do know when I was in simulations in German Township, I would not have a lot of people watching. Okay, this is you're the instant commander. You're standing in front of a building. We have a two-story headquarters, so you would look at the front of the building from downstairs. You want to look at the back of the building, you got to go upstairs.
Yep.
And so that way you actually had to walk around a little bit, but you didn't have a whole bunch of people watching you.
Yeah. So and one last thing before we close, Fairfax County does things like that. They have a treadmill in their command training center and that. So kind of the same thing. Rob Lassetti, who was out there at Fairfax, now he's down in Inglewood, Florida. he showed me that when I visited Fairfax's thing. So, and then the gentleman from Taiwan did put a video recording of their training in the link, so go ahead and check that out as well. So, John, I got to get to my meeting, unfortunately, with the city manager, but thank you for having me.
Thank you all. Take care. We'll end the presentation now. God bless everybody.